This is Mr. Bailey.
Cabby. Yo, it's Man Jay. Tune in to 88.1 FM, Potato Salad Radio.
What happens on the other side of it? So can you tell us a bit of the story of how you wound up going to Paris?
Well, basically, in my role at the EAT, I work alongside Catherine Abreu, and she's the energy coordinator for
Shout out to
EAC.
DJ Goldilocks.
She is so badass.
I used to work with her a million years. I don't know. I think so. I used to work with her a million years ago. Slanging coffees. A long time ago. Anyway.
She's so cool beans. Like,
nice. You know, I like the way you picked that up.
Yeah.
It's like,
she's
like
cool
an ice.
beans.
She's like an ice latte. Anyway. So you work with her.
Yes. And I've been working with her for a very short time, and she's kind of just taken me under her wing in that sense. Like, again, I don't have this extensive environmental background. I haven't been doing this for, grassrooting it hard for years. But she just invited me, because she is a certified delegate and actually a government representative, part of actually constructing the draft and delegating on that. Some really awesome, serious stuff, right?
Yeah.
And she had a flat in Paris and said, hey, if you wanted to come, you can stay with me. And so then I got this invitation to not only be able to kind of hang around the person that's right in the thick of it, but also to have a place to stay in Paris. Paris isn't cheap, right? Oh. And I was like, no matter what, I'm going to make this work.
Yeah.
Like, this has to work.
Yeah.
That door is there,
Right.
and I'm walking through it.
Right.
So I just went on Flight Network and got myself a ticket, and I went. And beforehand, I just looked at a couple different forums that are outside of the actual delegations to participate in, because I was more interested in education and being an observer. I wanted to see this history be made, and I wanted to have great conversations. It wasn't necessarily more so grassroots activism, but my own personal education, my journey. That's what it was more so about.
Going into it, what was the first moment where your expectations were kind of blown away or different, like really different than you thought it would be?
It was...
Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe you imagined it
I didn't
exactly
have any expectations, because I just didn't know.
Right.
I didn't... If you would have asked me about COP this time last year, I would have had to have Googled it, because I really did not know that much about it.
You'd be like...
Huh? Right?
Right.
So...
You'd put brutality. I would. I put words in people's mouths too much. But so you didn't know about that.
Exactly. So when I arrived, I wanted to just look into different forums and different avenues for education in that way. So I participated in the Global Landscape Forum when I first got there, and that was like a 3-day forum. Okay. And there was a youth delegation aspect of it. And it really just... world is small, because I got an email from someone that was at an EAC meeting and knew I was in Paris from a newspaper that they read, and contacted Kat, and the Kat forwarded her email to me, and blah, blah, blah. So then that's how I found out about the Global Lake States Forum, and they asked me to be a youth rep and speak, which was amazing. Didn't know what I was getting into. Walked in. It was like 4,000 people forum.
So you spoke in front of 4,000 people?
I did half. So you
2,000 people.
You can maybe a quarter. Maybe. I don't know. The room was
really big. Let's just say it was 4,000. Is it possible they heard you?
Maybe
8,000 people.
Okay.
It
was amazing, because I just was there representing Canada and a youth and another perspective. It was like it was people from all over the world.
Was there
speaking?
That must have been amazing.
Oh, it was amazing, and it was youth focused, right? This part of the forum. The forum was like way broader than just youth, right? So there were business professionals, and there were environmental ministers there. It was everything. So this aspect, it was great to be able to meet other people who just was looking at it on different ways, because again, this idea of activism is one way to approach it, and then there's this other way to approach it that's more kind of administrative and more about modeling and figuring out how these new processes and new innovative technologies can be implemented into communities, and how they're going to be, social structures are going to have to change, and how food security is going to impact it, and then what can we do about it. It's more about, there's an issue, a very specific one, let's work together and try to figure out a way to solve this so people can still sustain their lives, and also the environment isn't having further impact on it.
Right. So when you had your opportunity to speak at this forum, what did you say? What were you talking about?
I basically gave the same speech I gave here during the climate march. And my speech was, again, focused on this idea of bridging climate justice and social justice and equity, right? I actually got a really interesting email from a woman after my speech, and she was curious as to why I didn't mention women. Because I mentioned First Nations individuals, I've mentioned lower income, I mentioned African Nova Scotians, and how these environmental and climate change is really going to impact them differentially. And it was interesting. I was like, yes, because women were in my. I'm a woman. It's in my mind when I'm writing.
Sure.
And it's when I'm thinking and what I do. It's just inherent.
Right.
Just like I'm a woman and I am African Nova Scotian, so it's just a part of me.
Right.
So I didn't think to say it, but it was an interesting thing to say. So I kind of tweaked that part when I spoke in Paris about it to make sure that this idea of women was really brought into the attention, because women are disproportionately affected as well, greatly actually. So that's what my speech was really about, this idea of thinking with regards to science, environment, and how the world is changing and it's being affected in that very basic sense, and also how the people in the world that are already struggling and have a lot are going to have a lot more to deal with, and putting that in your focus when you're talking about mitigation and you're strategizing with regards to industry, with regards to government, with regards to anything else, right?
So what about being in Paris was disappointing, if anything? Let me ask you this way. Did you see a lot of this crackdown? Like people in the streets?
That was terrifying.
That was pretty, it looked pretty military state. Like, well, this isn't happening, folks.
I got off.
Now, partly that was due to the terrorist attacks. There was like concern about, I mean, I was a little convenient for my liking, but I think they would have been pretty hard on the rallies as they were. But what I saw was just this like, you're not going to be here, we're just clearing you out.
Exactly.
Did that must have been talked about. That must have been, how was that received? What was it like to see that?
It was really.
Were you ever in any danger?
I didn't feel like I was in danger until I was around military and police, to be honest. The guns, these giant AK-47s, half the size of my body. I'm getting off of the tube, just got off the plane, walking, and I had my head down, looking for my transit pass, and I almost bumped right into him with the big old gun, and I just like, oh my goodness, like why it's just so bizarre.
We're not we're not
everyone's
used to
going
that.
to where people are just and it was so uncomfortable, and everywhere you went there was like 4 or 5 bag checks, so screening and walking into malls, like not just with regards to the cop, because it was even more cracked down with the cop, but going into a mall, any type of public place, going into museums, going into anything like that, you're getting checked, you're getting checked. My flights, it was really intense. They threw away even my travel size shampoos and stuff. I purposely bought the little bottles so I could get it on my carry-on. I'm like, this is what this is for, and he was like, no, gone, garbage. No, just that's it. I was like, how am I going to wash? I was like, I'm going to smell in Paris, and it's your fault.
Well, maybe that's part of. I mean, I know that's an old stereotype, but maybe that's how they make people feel acclimatized. They're like, we all stink together, mon ami.
Yes.
Do you speak French?
I don't speak French, but I wanted to.
How was communicating with people from all around the world? Was it easy? Do they speak English?
Everyone has an English as a second language.
Yes.
Everyone, and again, these global forums, I'm not dealing with, they're like a very small group of people from Paris or even France, right?
Right, exactly.
We're talking about people from everywhere. And everyone had English as a second language. It wasn't a difficult situation. What I counted a lot, again, I get that a lot when I travel, as being Scotian and having a mixed background. People they just assume I am their culture. I don't know. I've had this universal, outside of maybe Scandinavian countries, but
fair enough.
But any Latin American, people who are from Brazil, they'll come and start speaking Portuguese to me. When the people even in France, they thought I was Afro-French, right? Especially anyone from South America, any type of Latin, automatically speaking Spanish. I not know that, and they would look at me like I was crazy. Why don't you know how to speak your own language?
Yo no hablo español.
So that was interesting too. It's just so diverse. It was amazing to be in that.